present?
Yes.
Here.
Isaac? Rosalie?
No, she's not on.
Oh, no, Rosalie.
Kathy. Kathy.
Kathy, yeah, Kathy. Sorry about Kathy. Kathy,
That's all right.
apologize for that, Kathy.
I'll answer.
So we are in session. Mr. Joe is going to explain us the issue about the lettering issue, you know, so.
Public Works is now in session. The first one should be the Emerald ore ash chemicals, which is right here.
Right here, yes.
Public Works.
Good idea.
So if, the ash board chemical, hopefully everyone got the email I sent
Yeah,
around
we saw
today.
that.
Sole source, so A&F and then Public Works will take it up.
I move approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All in favor?
I have one
Oh,
question.
I have a question.
Question.
As a purchasing guy, I have to look at this and say, why is it sole source?
The
I
only ones that
understand-
make it.
I know they're the only ones that make it, but there are a number of distributors that sell it. We went to one place. Why didn't we go to several distributors and get quotes from several distributors? I have no problem with doing this, but I think in the future, you people should be getting multiple quotes when you're able to get multiple quotes. I looked on the internet and there's a place in Butler that handles it. There's a place in northern Illinois and where Gurney, Illinois that handles it, plus the place that you went to. So it's not a sole source item.
But I understand it was $2,000 some savings on the purchase?
Yeah, if we ordered it now through this supplier, it was through brand. But I understand your
Yeah,
your
you know,
concern, Alderman.
Who knows if the supplier
Yeah, I
is
agree, sure.
giving us a fair price, you know, I at least keep them honest.
Did you want to hold?
No, I think we can proceed with it because we want to get this and get
Right.
everything going, but I just want to get a
Next year,
message
yeah.
across for the next one.
And I will pass that message along.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, this is for the purchase of the chemical product. It's our DPW crews who will be applying this product,
Yes.
right? Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Mr. Chairman, I will second Alderman May's motion to accept.
All in favors?
Aye.
Aye.
The aye carries.
Public Works, number 12 on tonight's agenda, I believe it's a joint, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Public Works, number 12 on tonight's agenda. Is
Move
there a
for
motion?
approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yep, Alderman Weigel.
Mike, you mentioned in your accompanying letter that we're getting way better results than we anticipated from this.
Oh yeah, a few years ago when I was going to these seminars, they were scaring the daylights out of me. They said once it's there, once this thing gets the borer or whatever this parasite is, the tree was dead. There was no chance it was going to live. There was no chemical. The best they had at that time was a chemical to at least delay the dying process. And now this chemical here is actually saving a large amount of these trees.
Trees that are even infected and showing
Yes.
signs already. Okay.
So technology and biology or whatever has
So it's
advanced.
one hole in the
a lot.
budget we won't have for the next 10 years.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, it'll be a small one.
we were looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars per year to deal with these trees. I mean, not only cutting them down, getting rid of the bark. I mean, remember we're in a quarantine type of area, so we couldn't send this basically firewood up north or anywhere else. That was illegal. Then, of course, replanting all these trees. I mean, we were looking at some real live dollars, and that's only on the public side. I was also afraid on the private side. I mean, there's probably just as many ash trees on private property as there are in the public side, and you're talking about thousands of dollars to cut down your tree. That's a lot of money to most people.
And the public sector, or excuse me, the private sector, arborists and all that stuff, do you think we're getting good penetration on, are people investing in their existing trees, do you know, or?
I hear a little bit that they are, but probably not.
No.
The word just hasn't gotten out. I mean, the newspaper articles and TV and that, but I would be surprised if a lot of people are.
Sounds like a business
Doing-
opportunity for something.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just to piggyback briefly on what Mike said, when I first got on the council, we were going through the Dutch elm disease, and it cost us hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars over a multi-year period, just getting rid of all the trees and then replanting them. And that's one of the reasons we have a larger variety of trees, street trees today, is because of all the problems we had with that.
Public Works, any further discussion?
I have a question. If a homeowner has these trees on their property,
who would they contact?
Oh, any,
treatment.
they're, I mean, I've gotten advertisements in the mail and that, any type of landscaper or, arborist, look in the phone book and they can come out there and do the same things that we're doing, private trees, yes.
And when did we start our treatments for our trees?
3, 4, maybe up to 5 years ago. So it's been a long time now, relatively long time.
And we have seen results.
Yes, the chemicals have actually been saving the lives of the trees now compared to before. The best hope was to delay the dying process for these things.
Right, because I remember when we went to a convention, we had a session on this, and that was what was indicated.
Yeah, it
So
scared
that's
me.
good news, yes. Thank you.
Any further discussion? With that, item number 12, it's been moved by Alderman Chapleski, seconded by Alderman Weidel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So is that it for joint session?
No, then
Then Joe,
then,
Yeah.
then it's Joe's turn.
so now we move in with Joe, residential property for inflow, infiltration reduction funds. Joe, go ahead.
Well, I got all the information that you asked for last meeting. So I have additional questions from the public hearing. I sent out the draft ordinance that's been reviewed by Scott and should be pretty final. And I'm going to go over the process, if it's approved, how it would be handled in-house. So let's start on here. You have to remember the main purpose of this is to reduce the flows in our sanitary sewers during the wet weather. So we're required to in certain areas because of the our non-compliance with flows with MMSD. This program would target the leakiest pipes. Private sanitary accounts for most of the clear water. We have about 180 miles of public main. We maintain it regularly. We have more than 180 miles of private main, and it's really never maintained. So, what this program covers is the lateral from the connection at the main. We'd be looking at a point about 6 feet from the house. What we don't want to do is get too close to the house, cause a problem. When the work is getting done, we could work with the homeowner to get as close as possible. And maybe in the lining process, we can get all the way to the clean out. We have done work like this before with MMSD's money. We had some flood grant money. We went into the neighborhood south of Beloit, east of 76th. We did about 95 laterals. This is a typical joint in some of those laterals. We got water leaking in because the joint is broken, roots get in there, and that's where people notice their problems. This is a test where Wauwatosa did a flooding test. What they did was they put dyed water in the lawn in front of the house from the curb to the house, and this is how much leaked through just the leaky lateral. So it's a good indication that that is a real problem. This is our database from our 2 big storms we had recently. 2009 was our biggest. The purple dots are reported sewage in the basement. Covers all 5 districts. The stars are from the 2010. Wasn't as big, but we still had some issues there. The little crosses are where we picked up furniture and stuff from basements. So this is our basin map. There are 40 sewer basins. One is not in use. It's the dump at 116th and Morgan. 2 are private. The Greenfield Park is Milwaukee County's, and the State Fair Park is their own. So we have 37, 30 of which are compliant, 7 non-compliant. Up until this year, the salmon-colored area, those are the 4 original basins. We were notified in 2011 that those were non-compliant. This year, we were notified that we have 3 more non-compliant. What MMSD is doing is, as part of that lawsuit with the state, they're required to improve their monitoring, their metering. So as they get better at metering, I think they'll find more non-compliant areas in the city.
Yeah, Joe, just real quick, I think it's appropriate. Tell us what's compliant, what's non-compliant. Compliant with what exactly?
There's a set allowable flow per acre. I think it's like 21,000 gallons per day. And we exceed that in these basins. It takes them years to determine that. They model it from actual flows, and they have to, you know, every storm is a little different, so it takes them a long time to determine whether we're compliant or not. So as they get new meters in, it's going to take them years to tell us whether we're actually compliant or not in some of these other areas. So I do expect that we'll see it move all the way out to about the freeway at some point. This is showing the MMSD's system, and they put monitors in. You know, each of these basins drain to their system. They put monitors in certain places, and so when one sewer shed goes, it's usually a group of them that go. So some of these lines actually loop to each other, so when they back up, they can overflow into another. So it's part of why it takes them so long to determine where a problem is and what's a problem and what's not. So the options we have to handle our high flows is increase our sewer system, MMSD's system, to carry more. Can increase the treatment and the deep tunnel system. Both of those are extremely costly. The other is to get it at the better source, the cheapest source. These are the most leaky pipes, and you get the best price per gallon removal in that. The chances of failure, it's hard to tell. The manufacturers say 75 to 100 a year. We have 11,000 of 17,000 that are 75 years old or more. But when we inspect them, we find some of the older pipes are in good condition, some of the newer pipes are in very poor condition. So age doesn't completely matter. You really have to inspect these. That's why we require an inspection from the homeowner. When we get these inspections done, we may have 300 or so that need rehabilitation. So the prioritizing is essential in this to keep it in the budget. I know we may get complaints about, you know, if somebody shows us their lateral is bad and we say we'll get to it in 2 years. They may not be real happy with that, but we may have to do that. I don't know how many requests we'll get. But we have staff that's trained in pipe condition assessment. We'll prioritize do the worst ones first. We want to avoid the failures because they're more expensive to fix. And we have to make sure that the laterals are actually in need. So if somebody brings in an inspection, pipe looks pretty good, we're going to have to tell them that it's really not that bad. So how the program will work is if you approve this program, we'll send information out to the property owners in the water bill, put it on the city website and the newsletter, and just explain how this program works, how to handle a problem when you have it. We'll also send that information to the plumbers, contractors, so they know how to deal with West Dallas on these. There will be 2 different types of rehabilitations. One is the property owner's request, where they bring us an inspection. Engineering evaluates that inspection. If it's bad, the property owner will sign an agreement. The agreement is basically saying I'll pay the $1,500 assessment. It waives the public hearing requirement. Then we'll prioritize the work. We'll have a contract each year to do a number of rehabilitations, so it'll be repaired on the city contract. Once it's repaired, the bill will go out for that special assessment. If we're getting less than 150 or so requests, we're going to go target areas of high flow. So in areas where we have sewer backups or in the basins that are non-compliant. We'll send letters out to the homeowners asking them to participate in this. We will inspect their lateral. So the first thing they have to do is agree to let us inspect their lateral. After they're inspected, they'll be evaluated. Work is scheduled. The property owner again has to sign an agreement for the rehabilitation to pay the $1,500. Lateral is rehabilitated on the city contract, and the bill goes out for the special assessment. Emergency repairs. When the property owner is told they have a failed lateral, when they have a backup, we're going to call in a plumber or a pipe cleaner to clear it out. If they can't clear it out, that contractor will get the information to engineering. We'll verify that it is actually a collapse. It has to be dug up. Again, the property owner will assign an agreement for this. This is a $3,000 cost for a dig-up emergency repair. If the cost of their, or the estimate from their contractor is very high, we would reserve the right to get additional estimates on that. But this will be handled pretty much by the property owner's contractor. So engineering inspects the repair, which we do now. And then after the repair, the special assessment bill will go out. So the program benefits is through time, we're going to reduce the risk of backups. We work to reduce our flows to be compliant again. And we reduce the cost to have to expand our system if we had to build to accommodate for all this. This also provides a way to rehabilitate these old laterals, which really hasn't been addressed in the past. Helps repair the failed laterals. I mean, if the average cost, they're usually somewhere between $10,000 to $15,000. We've seen some that happen to be on the city connection side that we paid over $30,000 for. So they can get very expensive. It's pretty devastating for the homeowner in some cases. So this would at least control that. The bill would be $3,000. So that's pretty much a quick review of the program, how it's going to work. We can go through the questions if you'd like to go through the questions, or if you want to just go through the additional questions.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we all got a lot of those ahead of time. I don't know if everyone else read through them. I read through them. Do we need to go through?
No.
I don't know if we
Did
need to.
anybody have any questions on this?
Any questions from the administration and finance members? Alderman May.
You know, Joe, when as a fellow engineer, I actually think this is a pretty wise idea. Okay, we're not going to perform brain surgery when what we need is heart bypass, right? That's kind of what we're looking at here. We're going to attack the problem where the problem lies. For me, the issue is a couple of things. One, protecting the monies. I think that was a big concern that the residents had brought up. Could we do a charter ordinance to protect that fund, or could we put some restrictions on that fund that make it extremely prohibitive to access that money? And maybe that's more of a question for someone other than yourself. But it's the financials and the liability that kind of concern me a little bit, because it is on private property. You know, what is our liability exposure? Should we be paying for some sort of insurance to cover our butts for this? Doomsday comes. I mean, there's some stuff in here where it says, we say we're not liable for it, but that does not mean necessarily in a court of law that we're not liable for it just because we say we're not. How are we? Well, it's insurance. I want to make sure our butts are covered.
Right. When we contract out our insurance requirements cover pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, it would probably be where we're paying the private contractor. They're no doubt insured themselves, but all of this also is being done with permission of the property owner. So we're not forcing anything on them. They're asking us to do it. So I think that itself may limit the liabilities, or the possibilities of being sued.
So-
If something goes wrong though, I mean, obviously the contractors do have to have insurance, so.
I mean, do we get assigned temporary limited easements? Is there anything like that that has to go on, or is it simply just thanks for your signature and go? I mean, how does that?
I mean, you've got a couple of different things with the liability. For the contractor liability, that we just foist off on the contractor. You have to have insurance. Staff spends a great deal of time making sure the contractors have the insurance that they're required, that they maintain it, and that meets all of our criteria. So we would do that for all, for the whatever contractors we got for this. For the liability that we face in terms of whether this whole scheme is valid or not, you couldn't get insurance for that. That's just a risk we're going to have to take. You know, that what we're doing is valid, just like any other ordinance that would get challenged. There's no insurance for that necessarily that you can get. Other than generally our CIVMIC insurance covers most type things like that, and we're insured up to $5 million. I think there's maybe $7.
Can I clarify that question real quick?
Sure.
It was more, you know, we're going to be prioritizing, and we tell someone you got to wait a couple years. Something happens, now their basement's full of sewage. Could they say, you should have done it for me? I'm suing you because you didn't.
Right, sure, and Joe said
That's
that.
where I'm
I
thinking.
said the ordinance was ready to go in good shape. That's not quite correct. I mean, as it is, it accomplishes what his general outline, but there's a number of problems with it. Most of them are just in terms of numbering and lettering and our definitions proper, that kind of stuff.
It's cleanup.
But also what we don't have is, we say the decision of the engineer is final. Well, that's never the case. We don't just get to wave a magic wand and say, that's it. People get to sue us. And we need a way to appeal the engineer's decision. Who's that gonna go to? All that stuff needs to be fleshed out. When we have a discretionary action by any city staff, here it would be the engineer, we face liability. Because they're gonna say they were wrong, whether it's because I think the police used excessive force, or the engineer should have granted me my new lateral, or you name it, we face that liability on a day-to-day basis. And we have insurance that covers that.
That's good.
But, you know, what will that do to our insurance rates if we start getting sued over and over again and lose these things? They'll go up. Yeah, but
Which brings up another.
you're sort of relying on your staff to make good decisions, and the standard is pretty much in our favor. It's if there's any rational basis to support it, we win. So unless the engineer just made a totally arbitrary decision, we'll win. But you do have the defense costs and everything else, which you know, for the most part, in most lawsuits we handle internally, even though
We'll
we
have to
have
hire
the
another
insurance
attorney.
company. We have to hire a couple more attorneys. Yeah.
I had another question related to that, and it passed me. It'll come back to me here in a second. It's on that thread, but it'll come back.
Any more questions?
But
Mike?
just to clarify, I mean, I'm not sure if there's a government program out there that isn't limited by the amount of funding that it has. Superfund cleanups are a perfect example of that. I mean, there's a backlog of 10, 20 years in that. So this program will always be limited by, and people will have to be explaining to people and try to make them understand that it will be limited by the amount of funding that is granted every year by the Common Council, like every other program that's out there.
Michael?
Thank you, and I'll be quiet so that people can speak too. Here's my last question: is there an out? Do we design something where, and how would we do it, where if the council in the future decides, 30 years from now they don't want to do this program anymore, do we have to design a mechanism to disperse that money back to the taxpayer again? Or what happens should the council decide to backtrack?
Yeah, well, that's the multi-million-dollar question, the answer to which I don't know. That's where we run into real trouble, is if in some future date a council decides to abandon this. Now I have been paying a user fee for 20 years, and I never got my lateral replaced, So where's my quid pro quo? This has now become a tax, and what was your right to tax me for this stuff? That's the danger in this, is if in some future date a council ever decides to abandon this project, then there's some very real multi-million-dollar liability concerns.
You know, the pyramid builders always knew the way out. There has to be, I would think we would want to put some sort of mechanism in here that would allow future councils to back out of it and disperse the funds back to the citizenry.
Yeah, there really wouldn't, the way this is designed, there wouldn't be any funds, because every year they're going to be spent, and you're reacquiring a pool of money for each upcoming year, and so that money's gone. And so at these rates of, let's say you pay, 75 to 100 to 125 as it goes up every year over 20 years, and you've never gotten your lateral replaced, and then the system is abandoned, then I can go back 20 years times that. Here's how much I paid in, and I never got anything back. Then you'd see those lawsuits, I think, from those people who never got a lateral and didn't get their money back. And I'm not sure what defense the city would have there. It's been a long time now since my 4 or 5 or 6 page memo went out on this thing, but that's where we have the real risk in terms of, because we can't tax for this. We don't have this. For us to tax, there has to be a state law authorizing us to tax. We don't have that here, so it has to be a user fee, and that means that not necessarily that for every dollar you pay and you get back, but that the entire system that you paid for, and I think I cited to you that case out of Milwaukee with regard to building inspection. As long as the user fee that I'm paying for pays for the building inspection of my particular type of business, then that's good enough. But here, where you would be paying in and you don't get anything back other than the general well-being of the system, once you start talking about general well-being of a system, that's a tax. And so that's where we run into some real potential problems.
I have a comment on that.
Yes.
You have control of the fee, and you have control of the special assessment. I would say if there's any cost issues, that the special assessment should go up, to a point where people aren't going to be rushing to the door to get their lateral done because they got to pay maybe $8,000. I mean, it's exaggerated, but you do have that control. And until we see this happening for a few years, we're not going to know. Right now, the $1,500 and the $10 fee will cover 160 rehabilitations at today's cost. I see the cost coming down though. I can't guarantee it's going to come down in the future, but that's what it's based on right now. So you do have to watch it every year, and you may have to raise that special assessment.
Joe, what's the percentage at this time, based on the area that you show on the map, that is more critical in relations of flooding,
Well, from the map, the flooding is, the complaints are pretty widespread. So, mostly east of the freeway. But there's, every district has some houses that get backed up when it rains. So.
Yes, I'm aware of that. So, any other questions? Mickey?
Okay, just going back to what you said here, the way that someone flushed the toilet and it's not going away. So they hire somebody to come to it and they say, yeah, it's all collapsed. Here's pictures and everything, it's all collapsed. And then we gotta come to the city, then the city's gotta make the decision. What is that time frame?
Well, they already do that. So, the first thing that a contractor has to get a permit to dig before he can dig it out.
Right, okay, and I'm not, the digging hasn't even started yet. I'm saying they went in with the camera and everything and they see everything is collapsed. So now they come to the city. You say they gotta dig
No,
before they come to the city?
no, there's many ways to show proof that it's collapsed.
Right, okay.
So, in some cases, we just have, Christmas Eve. Obviously, we're not gonna question the guy too much. If it's gotta be fixed, it's gotta be fixed. So there's a lot of discretion in, letting them go ahead. But for the most part, it's not very difficult to prove that it is collapsed.
Okay, but what I'm saying is the timetable. Somebody's got, because obviously it's an emergency. And so go to the city now, you say, okay, we gotta check how many people are ahead of you and how many, what are we talking? I mean, did the guy gotta sit there for a week? Or
No,
what is this?
This would be hours.
Is
So
it-
we could do it, normally the contractor doesn't even wanna dig on a weekend because then he's gotta charge more and,
Right.
so the,
Okay, I understand all that,
you
but
know,
I
even in an emergency, usually you can wait a day. Most of these things drain slowly, they don't
just
totally back up,
Right.
but, so each situation would have to be looked at, how fast you gotta get in there. So, obviously, we wouldn't try to get too many estimates and, you know,
Right.
if it's a real big
Yeah,
problem,
just
we're
kinda
not
go-
gonna put someone out of their home.
Okay.
So,
And the other question, I didn't say anything about sub pumps in here.
the sump pumps currently, we're getting funding through
Right,
MMSD. That's gonna go on for sure till 2020.
Okay, so as far as you can see, because we had talked about putting it in here, as far as you can see, it's not gonna be in here
It's,
in the near future.
it's not in, right now. If it ever did go in there, you'd have to set a special assessment for it. And the special assessment for that may
Well,
be very close to
But
what it actually
what I'm saying is,
costs.
we're gonna be voting on this ordinance in order to we'd have to make changes to the ordinance in order to do that.
You would have to vote
You can't just
to include that.
include it,
Yeah.
okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And Joe, to follow up to your conversation with Alderman Chaplesky, you're talking about digging, but in many of these instances, we would be relining the existing
Yeah.
lateral, and that wouldn't involve any
Right.
digging. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
There are right now, I looked back several years and our worst year had about 30 digs. But an average year, somewhere between 10 and 20. So if we can get some of these lines, people know they have problems because they have to get their lateral cleaned every year. Those are the people we expect to hear from. They just gotta get the inspection in. I'm sure that when they inspect it, it's gonna qualify to get lined. And we'll try to get those done before they do fail. So we'll save money.
Joe,
If a homeowner, I'm sorry,
that's okay, go ahead.
if a homeowner has a problem, and a lateral is suspected, does the homeowner have the sole discretion at choosing the contractor, or is the city gonna get involved in suggesting contractors?
Well, in an emergency dig, they're gonna select a person to come out and determine that it is collapsed. And that contractor usually gives them an estimate to fix it. If it's within reason, we would agree to just let them do that. If it's far out of the normal cost, we would have to reserve the right to go get a second, which could take hours, but we could get a second estimate. Or even negotiate down their estimate,
Let's see.
so.
Joe, if, like you mentioned early, if the property owners, they have a letter or problems, they sign the waivers, so it would be say 150, say per year. This experience problem that they can think about, they have some problems, you know.
They sign a waiver saying they're willing to pay the special assessment. Then when they get the special assessment, they'll get the option to put it on a 10-year payment plan or pay it off right away.
The $1,500.
Yeah.
So the questions was discussed tonight about people suing because we didn't follow up. They were not the first one to take care of that problem because we told them you're gonna wait. If we have say 150 people and they sign a waiver and we put them, I call it the whole roster. We put them in line by names. You know, you call first, you're the first one. So they all be in line. So the 151, you end up to have problems. You know,
Yeah, I don't think we can,
you can't do that.
we would view all of their inspections, and the ones that look bad need to get done
They
right.
take care of it. Okay.
Yeah. So the ones that we say can wait, we don't think there's any problem other than they're leaking, so.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Joe, when you suggested that the engineers would be looking at this in order to make the determination if the lateral has been collapsed and does need to be relined, one engineer, a group of engineers, how was that going to be decided, and is there going to be concrete examples of what, past this line, these get done, because otherwise you're looking at subjective human.
Well, no,
You know.
we actually are trained in,
I'm not
And-
suggesting.
and there's severity of defects that you can determine how bad the pipe is. And so we could actually score the pipes.
Okay,
So we have, I think, 3 people that are certified.
okay.
So we offer that to people now that, you know, a contractor gives them the inspection, they don't know what to do, so we'll look at it for them.
My question comes in, or my concern comes in that someone brings in their camera, you know, their evidence of what's going on. An engineer looks at it and says, no, this can wait. And then it can't because something happens. That, I think that might have been where you were headed with that, and that is my overriding concern, is
Yeah.
the judgment then of the engineer who looked at it, thus the
Well-
city is called into question.
Right, it's the same thing we do for our mains. We televise our mains every 8 years, we're televising. We look at every one and we rate it. And the ones that don't look like they're gonna make it, we replace them. So there's always some chance of error, or something could happen. But we haven't seen that too often, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
do I understand it correctly? No homeowner will pay more than $3,000 to have this?
That's for the emergency repair,
Yes.
that's what I suggested for the special assessment for now, yes.
No more?
No more.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Mr. Chair?
Alderman Weigel?
2 questions. So we say it's 150 a year that you're gonna do. Are you gonna start the year on January 1st? Are you gonna start it in June 1st? It could conceivably be 150 in that first month, right?
Yeah,
So then you have 11 months.
the way that the special assessments work, we do them for other projects. We would do them the same way. They get the bill. If they wanna go on a 10-year plan, they don't pay it. It shows up on their taxes.
I'm not worried about the collecting the money from the from the property owners. I'm worried about when the work gets. Would we get better pricing if we started the program in May with the idea that you might have a waiting list you'd have to burn through right away?
We'd have a waiting list before we contracted out.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so ideally, whatever date this starts on would be a time of the year where we'd get good pricing on the
Yeah,
contract.
what I would expect to do, we hire a contractor to do 150 rehabilitations, plus or minus. And then we start that maybe midsummer. And when they get those done, we'll have a waiting list of all the people that are getting done on there. If we had something happen during that time that they were in, we could add some.
And the emergency people can do their.
Emergency is off of that.
Yes.
It's a separate issue.
Okay, and then the other question is, MMSD announced this week that they captured and cleaned 99.5% of the water in the system. They also said the national goal for a system like MMSD's is to capture and clean 85%. So I understand we're considering that there will be an order sometime in the future. Right now, we're not under an order to do this. We're solving a bunch of problems with this, but this is a choice that we're making. We're not under an order to do this. And if I read this correctly, we may never be under an order to do this. You're speculating that we will be.
Well, we actually, when in our notification letter, I have to send them a report on what we're gonna do in these basins that are non-compliant and when it's gonna get done, annually. So they do, I don't know if they determine how much needs to get done, but something has to get done. You have to have a plan.
All right.
This plan would take care of that.
Have you seen plans for other communities?
No. And usually it's, we've done sewer repairs. Other communities, everybody handles their system differently, so.
I just think it's unusual that nationally the goal, which I assume the EPA or somebody puts on, is 85% capture and clean. So that means they're only letting 15% through, okay?
Mhm.
We're only letting 0.5% through right now.
Well,
I would almost
in 1
think
year.
that if.
Yeah. There's more to that rule though, because they are allowed to have an overflow in their combined system so many times, never in the separated system. So I mean, there's it's more complicated than just saying a percentage gets through into the lake, and so.
There are so many communities that are under consent orders right now in the billions of dollars to upgrade their systems and that. I'm not sure, I remember glancing at that article this morning. I'm not sure if it was a goal as much as what it actually was nationwide and what communities were doing. I can tell you right now that 80%
I'm not quoting the
is
journal, I'm
that.
quoting MNSD's website.
Okay, I was reading that.
There's no reporter in between to get something confused.
That it might be 80%, but there's no chance of what the environmental groups and what EPA wants to see. I mean, MMSD has been, with all the criticism that they've gotten unfairly, I believe, has done an outstanding
Oh,
job.
I think the
when it
deep
comes
tunnel
out
works. I think, you know,
there. It
it's.
works
the
as it was
overflows of
designed
flooding.
and
Yeah.
as what was being
Yeah.
told people way back in the 1980s. But there's a lot of systems out there that are completely failing, and they're getting hit with some huge expenses right now.
Yeah, I agree with Mike, because back in the late eighties, there was some meeting that the Milwaukee Sewage District were holding by Colony Hall on 59 on Beloit Road. They said there was the future of the overflow within all the surrounding communities, you know. But today, I believe the problem just pre-exists. So still, there's some problem out there. So I would like to put on the motion by the administration and finance, the residential property, private property inflow infiltration reduction funds. So on the motion, go ahead.
I don't wanna make a motion yet, I just wanna make a couple more points.
Sure.
So my motion right now would be to table it,
Table it?
until there's more info. And, do you want me to explain first, or do you want the motion first?
Well,
No, my motion's gonna be to
if you
table
wanna
it.
explain it first, I think I'd be grateful.
I'll
Here's
second
what-
your motion to table it for discussion.
Yeah,
In
for
a different
discussion.
committee though, I think.
Here's what I'd like to ask. Scott, from the attorney's perspective, I know you're bogged down with things. Should we be hiring outside counsel to help us button some of this stuff up?
I mean, you've had my opinion now for, I don't know how many
Right.
months, it's 4, 5, 6 months, however long it's been. And certainly, it's a highly technical area of the law, and there are specialists in this area that you could hire. I spoke with one after I wrote my opinion. I was at a seminar and happened to be sitting right next to the speaker, and I've known him for a number of years. And I ran this idea past him, and he said, off the top of my head, I think you're right, but I'd have to look at it in more depth. So, you know, there are attorneys out there that specialize in this and can do it. And probably if you're going to want to get into areas like setting up a fund and doing it, looking for ways to undo it in the end, I'd probably highly recommend you get outside counsel for something like that. Because that's where I see the biggest liability for the city.
Okay. And then my other question's for Mark. Try to call you. Same question, with the financials and things like that regarding this. Are you comfortable in what you're putting together, or would you like to have some sort of outside counsel? Maybe I should preface all this. Most engineering reports I'm used to, it's one document. It lists the problem, it states the alternatives, goes through costs. It buttons everything up in one good document that you can hand to another agency. They give it a peer review and give a blessing. And I don't know if we're there yet. We've got some stuff prepared by Scott. We've got some stuff prepared by you, Mark. We've got some stuff prepared by the engineering department. It's not comprehensive and it hasn't been reviewed. And I think it's a big decision we're making. I think the concept of it is right on. I'm in favor of the concept. I just want to make sure we got everything buttoned up. are you comfortable in what you've prepared, or do you think we should hire outside counsel to go through some numbers and?
We can certainly, if you want to, we could certainly have our audit firm take a look at it. That's certainly a service that they could provide if you wanted that extra level of scrutiny on there. I mean, in terms of what Joe has described, will the system cash flow? I mean, within the limited context as he's described it, yes. If he can keep it to X number of repairs a year, if they can keep the cost controlled, and Joe's even hopeful of creating a business of driving the price down, the system can cash flow, certainly, if it's done within those parameters. But if you want to have our independent audit firm take a look at it, absolutely they can do that. They would be auditing it annually once it were created, so it doesn't hurt to get their input on the front end.
I don't know what the general consensus is, but I'd really like this to be well buttoned up. And I understand when you go into something new, it's not always going to be perfect day one, but we want to get close.
Well, one more comment. I mean, it's not a question of whether it can cash flow, because as I understand the way it is once we're out of money, that's it. We're done. We're not doing this anymore.
Right.
The problem is going to come from a legal standpoint of, yeah, but I meet all your criteria. I've paid my money in, and now you're telling me that's it. I have to wait until next year, or maybe the year after that. Even those are some of the legal problems, and I didn't really address any of those in there. But as the thing keeps getting fleshed out, you can just see more and more issues that crop up with it.
I guess what I'm saying is I like the concept well enough where I'd like to explore. We've identified these trip falls. Let's find a way now to get over them and make it happen, I guess, is what I'd like to see. I don't know where people are feeling on the rest of the council on this, but this makes a lot of sense from an engineering perspective. It's going to cost citizens more to build a deep tunnel system or whatever than it's going to cost for a system like this. I mean, it makes sense, but we got to button it up.
But we need to get everybody in the district to get into it then, because if the storage district still decides to improve the deep tunnel project, we will West Dallas residents will still have to pay into that. See what I mean? If MMSD decides to upgrade the deep tunnel, we'd still be liable for what they deem as our share of it. So we'd have to be paying our fee plus our share of that. That would work if everybody in the district bought into the same program that we're doing.
Is that true?
Everyone in the district is under the same parameters for their flow allowance. So the district is saying if we can all get within that flow allowance, they won't have to expand.
But if we're the only one to do this and get our flow down, and the district still decides to do some sort of district-wide improvement, are they gonna say to us, it's like, you know what, West Dallas, you've done what we've asked you to do, we're not gonna charge you for this new improvement in the system. We're gonna spread that, we're just make everybody else pay who hasn't done what you've done. Is that gonna happen?
I doubt it.
No.
In the meetings that I've been in, there's no chance of that happening. What MMSD is gonna do, what the DNR has always done, is go after the individual communities that are violating and tell them to fix it. That the days of building deep tunnels
Or if the
in
communities get
Milwaukee
together and
is
sue
done.
MMSD and say, you know what, you sold this deep tunnel thing as solving a problem, now you're saying it didn't solve the problem, you're coming back to us again to solve the problem.
Well, then you can go to, certainly you go to court on something like that, but I can tell you that the DNRs and MMSD they'll never buy that. I hope I live long enough to ever see the deep tunnel expanded. That will not happen. They are gonna go after the individual communities just as much as EPA has got an order now with New Berlin, or Brookfield, because Brookfield, part of Brookfield is an MMSD, part of it's their own, and EPA came down on Brookfield and they're still fighting it out, and if the EPA gets what they want with Brookfield, it has scared the living daylights out of that director up there too. The deep tunnel will not be expanded. Not in any of our lifetimes, not in our grandchildren's lifetime. They'll go after and tell the communities, West Dallas, you fix your problem. this is the flow parameters that you will meet, or we'll see in court.
But they haven't told us that yet.
No, that's right. We are trying to present something to get ahead of the 8 ball, to get ahead of it. And obviously, it's your decision as policymakers to see if this is a good idea for all of our citizens out there.
Maybe
Because-
TOSA, maybe this should be a district-wide program, not just the city of West Dallas. And maybe 10 years from now, we'll all be shaking patting West Dallas on the back. You guys had the foresight to do this. Maybe that's the way it's gonna go, but I'm nervous.
I am too.
Yeah.
This is a huge step. I mean, this is a outstanding idea of Joe to try to
Yeah. It's thinking
resolve
outside the
and try
box.
to
It really is.
fix
That's what
the
we ask of
problem
our
out there.
staff. Yeah.
That's what it is, and I think it's a program that's gonna work. I think it's gonna be a program that Joe unfortunately is gonna be speaking to a lot of other communities and a lot of other professional groups to explain how he did this and how he came to this point. Because there's a lot of interest already on what he's doing here and what he's proposing, and it will continue.
From what I'm gathering is we still have to see the ordinance form, correct? It's still to be drafted. It sounds like, I think everybody, I don't know, we didn't really vote on it or get a consensus to get an audit. I agree with that. I think it should be done so we have as much information as we possibly can have. I don't think there's anybody on the council that doesn't realize this was probably one of the biggest decisions this council will or will not be making, I think, since I've been on the council. I think we need every piece of information at our fingertips before we make this. I still, and I said it the last time, I still hasten to keep kicking the can down the road and say, okay, well, maybe next month, and maybe next month, maybe by July, maybe by August, maybe by next year we start this. I think we have to come to some kind of conclusion within the next maybe 60 days at the most, and say yay or nay to this. But ordinance form, the draft, is there something that Scott's gonna add to this? I'm not sure. It didn't sound like there's much more he can add.
Yeah,
Without
there's
maybe getting some outside counsel.
Well, not for drafting the ordinance, I mean, what that requires is, like I said, numbering, lettering, some definitions I had some quibbles with, but mostly what's missing right now is it just says the engineer's decision is final. That needs to go somewhere. Is that gonna be appealed to common council? Is that there has to be an appellate right somewhere, and, so we gotta put that in.
Yeah.
Right, so even that.
See Mickey's board, you know,
See Mickey's board.
Let's sum it up, Joe. Do you know what we're all looking for now?
I believe,
Ordinance
clarity
form,
yeah, ordinance.
correct?
Yeah, can I sum it
Yeah,
up?
absolutely. Please.
I worked with a project with Michael Cudahy. And he wanted something, we said, we can't do it, we can't do it. What he said to me was, don't tell me how it can't be done, tell me how it can be done and let me make a decision on the end. I think what we're asking for is for all the department heads and everybody to work together, figure this out, show us how it can work, and then we'll make a determination from there. So if there's anything from a legal standpoint, Scott, I know we can't tell your office what to do, you're an elected official, but Mark, please work, everybody, please come together, show us how it will work, and we'll make a determination from there. I think that's it in a nutshell, a very big nutshell.
So that's the decision tonight by the Administration and Finance.
I would agree with that.
What we have in front of us, 13, is communication, so I think we can just hold it, or we can place the communication on file.
That would work too.
Yeah, we can just hold it. Everybody agree on that, then, right?
Yeah, hold it.
To hold
It's
it?
still active.
We just hold it.
Did you want an opinion from outside council on
I think
the viability of this?
I think everything we can possibly get, yes.
Well,
I,
what kind of a budget are you looking at for that? I can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on outside council, I mean,
Gotta swallow it out.
in no time, so.
Can you get it done for $10?
May I make this-
$5,000, is that
What's
reasonable? I'm not
reasonable?
kidding you.
What's
10.
reasonable?
No, you're probably looking at somewhere around $50,000.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Health insurance.
Personally?
No.
Personally?
Yeah, right.
No,
I would not disagree. That sounds about right.
It sounds like a lawyer too.
Yeah. Nice use of the double negative.
I anecdotally gave an opinion to the development department on a subject, and they wanted a second opinion, so sent it out for a real quick second opinion. I think my opinion was about a half a page. Theirs was a 7 or 8 page. Now, it came to the same conclusion, and it was about 3 weeks later, and it was $17,000 or $18,000. This is a much more complicated thing. You're probably looking at somewhere between 25 and 50, I would think.
Would we want,
Where's the money coming from?
well, would we want staff and everybody to put it all together first and then send it for review?
Depending on where we're, the final product.
Let's see what Scott can come up with on your own.
Well, you got my opinion. All I'm going to do now is just tinker with the ordinance to
Verbalize
get that
it
into that.
to
Yeah.
the ordinance, and
Mark and.
then we can take a
And
look
then
at
we
and mark it
Mark,
the
I
auditor.
think,
Our
by
auditors
the
are
audit,
in
I
next
think.
week,
Yeah.
for some prelim work, so we'll talk with them then.
Yeah, right.
I think
So I
it's a
believe
nice
we're
move.
done.
Okay.
Pretty much.
So we go back to the common council for?
No.
Joe, thank you.
Now we have committees.
No, committee, yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
Well, I concentrate on all this stuff.
We started at 6.
Yeah. Who made the new logo?
Yeah, and he brought it back. I noticed that too.
Oh, wait a minute, that's
I saw
The
that.
combination of both.
So
the
we
old
gotta get
and
our
the new.
old pins and wear them.
I got the old one, so.
I got the old ones too, laying somewhere.
That's what comes up on the computer. Turn it on.
So who did that? Who did that? Somebody had Janovich, huh?
He's doing that, okay?
New logo? Where'd the new logo come from?
Around for like Ross Baker years ago just kind of made that together.
Well, but that's the old and the new.
Let's throw all the new together.
Yeah, I know, that's what that was.
So it can't be that many years ago.
Yeah.
Ross
First he
did like,
now we're talking
about 2.5 years ago, he's quit. So it's been at least 2.5 years.
Public Works, we have one thing on tonight's agenda, number 19. I need my glasses. Resolution amending the existing professional service contract with AECOM, ECOM, to provide counseling services relative to stormwater plan reviews and compliance with DNR, NR 151, and NR 216, and MMSD's Chapter 13 rule for additional sum not to exceed $10,000.
What this is, we send out all the development site plans to make sure they meet the stormwater requirements. AECOM reviews them, they bill us, we send that, the permit fee covers that bill.
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved by Alderman Chaplowski, seconded by Alderman Ranky. Is there any further discussion?
Was this, Mr.
Oh,
Chair?
yep.
Was this an unusually large amount? Was this is just a regular pass-through every year anyways, right?
Well, not every year, we wait till they're out of the money from
Okay,
the last
okay,
time. So
okay.
this year was very busy, we spent more than the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So, that's a good sign, I guess.
Things are turning around.
With that, the resolution has been moved by Alderman Chaplowski, seconded by Alderman Ranky. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. That concludes Public Works. Alderman Chaplowski.
Okay, let's call license of health to order. You wanna sit in for, what's his name?
You might as well.
First thing we have, Tony Donaldson? Tony? Okay,
That's second appearance, miss, right?
yeah, Tony's the first. Desiree Hennefield? Desiree?
She's the second. Move for denial based on 2 non-appearances.
Desiree?
She was too?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's, no, the first one was not,
Second.
first one was the first. Okay, so we got Marty one.
Mr. Chairman, did, one of those, I know you called out 2 names, or it might be the next one coming up.
Yeah, there's one more here, yeah.
Was the gentleman, I think, that might be
Right.
the bartender, and he
Right.
said he's gonna say something. Should we hold that one and give him the,
I was gonna move for denial based on the.
I know,
record.
I saw the record is, I know what the odds are, but, okay, let's act on this one, and then we'll go there.
Okay. Is there a motion and a second to deny? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then we have, number 54, Darnell Miller. This is a second request, certified mail went out.
Felon on parole.
Yeah, this is the, Okay, from when?
Well, it hasn't showed up twice, so.
2004, yeah.
Gonna put down 2 reasons for denial? No, I'm gonna move for denial based on the record.
And I will second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Okay, yes, number 36. This is a special event permit for DOPS.
How many?
Is this boxing matches?
Fundraiser for
Is that URMC?
URMC.
Oh, that's MMA I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Move for approval?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Then we have 37.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Then we have number 38, this is Gardina's. They were foreclosed on.
They're still
I
open.
know. Are you sure they're still open?
They were open over the weekend.
I get the note saying foreclosed.
Yeah. What does that mean?
The county's now pursuing it.
Yeah. But so they've given them a song and a story. They're still open. Do we care? I guess. I don't know. Is
Well,
it-
what we gave to them,
Yes.
what we said, and they weren't here to hear it, is that we gave them till this date.
Mhm.
And I think it was January 6th, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
We said this.
Were
meeting.
they
We said we'd give them
informed
through
of
the
that?
holidays
Yep.
because if somebody had like a Christmas
Right,
cake
right.
or
I remember
cookies
exactly
they
what you
needed.
said.
So
Not so much for them, but for their customers.
do we have an attorney here? Jenna's not here. I saw her.
He's here.
Is Jenna still here?
No,
So-
I don't.
Scott's not familiar with the case though.
Okay. Jenna left.
I do know that Jenna said that it could now be approved based on the foreclosure
Okay.
filing.
So would by approved, you mean, well, we have a summons, we don't have a summons
Those are
complaint
the,
on it.
yeah, those are the
This
findings
is the
and
findings.
recommendations.
This is
Oh,
the
right, we already
finding.
had the summons complaint.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is to,
This is to remove their food permit.
It would
What
be
we had.
approval of the findings and recommendation.
I'll move approval of the amended findings and recommendations.
do I have a second?
I will second that.
This is
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Sorry. Okay. Just for the payment, just look at-
Yeah, thank you.
not too sure. Okay, then now we got, let's see, 39, 40, and 41 are all Pub and Grub. They've not paid what they were supposed to pay by 1/6/15. Once again, we said the same thing with them sitting here. Didn't we? I'm sorry.
Well, now this one's a summit.
Okay, we have a summons and complaint for 39, summons and complaint for 40. Renewal application
39's a
that we
summons
never
and
did.
complaint, 40's a summons
41.
and
If I
complaint.
may, Mr. Chair?
Yep, please.
Because the findings and recommendations had already been approved at a previous meeting. So based on the findings and recommendation they had until today, you could place 39 and 40 on file, and then for 41, it would be a revocation and non-renewal of the license, based on the fact that the findings and recommendation had previously been approved by the committee and council.
Your Lauderdale says that?
I would just say for
30.
39 and 40 for place on file, and then for 41, it would be for the license to be revoked and not renewed.
Mr. Chairman,
Alderman Barzak.
as stated. Need a second.
Oh, that was a
I make the motion as stated.
Okay, do I have a second?
And I will second that.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, this is place on file, so 39, 40, and 41 is to revoke.
Not renew, right?
Monica got nothing from them today, or, yeah.
Nothing. We checked with the county treasurer's office all the way up until they were able to take payments, and nothing came into the county.
Okay, is there any further discussion on any of these? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We oppose? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So the net result, the PD goes there tomorrow and takes the licenses off the wall, is that what's gonna happen?
They will be notified that the license was revoked.
Okay.
And
They're closed anyhow. I drove by and
Yeah, they-
sign saying for sale.
Well, the for sale sign's been up for a while, and they've been closed, he had been open.
Okay, I drove by today and they were closed at
He's only open at certain times.
5:30 p.m. when they should have been open.
Okay, then we got items 42 through 50. These are all police reports. Need a
Move to
motion
place
for-
on file, Mr. Chair. Second.
Ooh, we'll give them the bars.
You go right in.
Any further discussion?
No, but there it is. I see it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone oppose?
And before you go on the next one, I'll point out to you that there's no, this needs to be filled in, the committee recommendation on this one.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Okay, I believe that's it. Hang on one second.
Yeah, 40, we went 42 through 50.
Yeah, we're at 42 through 50.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, yeah. That's, yeah, his bartender, yeah. At 72 Bistro, or 7 West Bistro.
And we got our heavy lifting.
Are we done?
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.